Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our first Facebook Live feed. It's a little bit daunting sitting here and have the cameras rolling in front of my eyes, but hopefully you can all hear us, and hopefully today you get a bit of information about the processes of the reimbursement process here in Australia. Firstly, before I start, I want to mention a couple of things because, as you all know, SMA Australia isn't government funded and we raise all our own money ourselves. So if you are listening and would like to come to one of our galas this year for Awareness Month, we have Melbourne Gala on the 5th of August down in Melbourne, and we have the Brisbane Gala on the 26th of August in Brisbane. So please keep that in your head, and we would love to see you at one of those galas with your family and friends this year for a ripping good time for our Awareness Month for August. So we'll put up some flyers a little bit later and remind you of those two great events that are coming up. I want to first of all start by telling you about what happened in Canberra on the 21st of March this year. I was lucky enough to get an appointment with a health advisor through the Minister's office, and I met with a man called Alex Best, and also my local member Jason Wood, who is a great advocate for rare diseases here in Australia. And we were able to talk to Alex about the process of Spinraza. As you all know, the drug that we're very excited about is currently under review through the TGA, and we wanted to highlight the urgency of this drug being passed so that all our families are able to have access here in Australia. I know that it's really frustrating watching online and Facebook, and you know that people overseas are having access to this drug, and when we haven't quite got access to it yet. So the meeting went really well, and in a nutshell, Alex has said to me that they will engage Biogen and hopefully get that process fast-tracked in the next couple of months. So it was an amazing meeting, one of the best days of my life for the SMA community in the last 12 years. So it was pretty humbling to go in there on everyone's behalf and make sure that we can make a difference for the kids here in Australia. But today we've got with us the Executive Officer Nicole Millis from Rare Voices Australia, and we're going to be talking about the reimbursement process, how a drug is funded here in Australia. In America, as we know, the drug costs a lot of money, but there's a different process here in Australia so that families don't have to pay that sort of money for the drug. So I welcome Nicole today. Thank you for coming, really appreciate it. Thank you for your expertise on this subject. A lot of us have really no idea what happens when a drug is introduced into the government here, and there's a strict process, and we're going to talk about that process today. So if you want to enlighten us on the process of that does happen, that'd be fantastic. So Take it away.
Thanks, Julie. And look, what you touched on, Julie, is very correct. There are a lot of you will be aware that in America they have a very different health system to ours, and the reimbursement system is very different as well. There is a process, and you mentioned, Julie, the TGA, and that's really the first part of the process. It's a therapeutic goods administration. So it's important to understand a bit about the process as patients or family members of patients. Obviously, what you want is the drug to become available as soon as possible, and that's your viewpoint and that's your perspective, and that's what you need to keep fighting for. But to be the most strategic around that, you really need to understand the process, and it needs to go through different hurdles. So following the approval through the TGA, next then it needs to go through a process of what we call reimbursement, which is really around funding of the drug. Because without government funding of the drug, quite simply people aren't going to be able to access it.
And afford it. It's $750,000. Who's got $750,000 in their back
That's
pocket
right.
to pay for a drug per year to keep their child alive? And that's what our
Yeah.
government does. Our government supports us in paying for that.
That's right. So then once there is TGA approval, and then the pharmaceutical company, they can apply for the drug to be listed through the process of the PBS, and that stands for the Pharmaceutical Benefits Scheme. And that's the scheme that funds the majority of medicines in Australia. With that process, that's assessed by an independent advisory body called PBAC, or in full, it's the Pharmaceutical Benefits Advisory Committee. So the submission for the treatment will go to PBAC. The important thing about, and then what happens, is that the to go for a medicine to be approved on the PBS, it has to be deemed as being clinically effective and cost effective. Now that's always tricky in terms of rare disease treatments because of small patient numbers. Often rare disease treatments don't meet that cost effective criteria. Nevertheless, all treatments, including rare disease treatments, need to go down that pathway. If the PBAC deem a drug as being clinically effective, there are other pathways from that point that rare disease treatments can go through to be funded. So as you will see, it's a rather long process, and it's a rather circuitous
It's a necessary process.
Well, it's the only process that we have, so we need to.
And I know that in the past, the FDA fast-tracked their drug over there. It was the quickest drug to get on the FDA in their history. So we know that the drug is efficient. We know that it's safe. And that was something that we spoke with Alex about. And he sort of said to me, oh, this is fantastic, thumbs up, this is great. It gives us, the process here in Australia, better reckoning, I suppose, better recognition. The process may take less, but he was more willing to make sure that he put his hand up and was a champion, behind that, and the health minister hopefully can do the same thing and they can get it through the first process we're talking about now, which is the TGA.
Yeah.
It's currently under review at the TGA, and we then need to move into the PBS stage, and that's the next stage. So when I went to Canberra on the 21st of March, it was the first round, and obviously I'm going to have to go back for subsequent rounds, and in the future we also need our families and our communities to get behind us. I'm only one voice, but together, collectively, we're many voices, and we need to be able to be heard through our local politician. And that's another important point today that we make. We want you guys to go to your local politician and talk to them, and to make sure that they're aware of who you are. It's really important, isn't it, Nicole?
Look, it is. And so when we talk about the FDA, we need to remember that that's an American system, and what we need to focus on in this is the Australian system. So that's the TGA. There are parts of the process that patients can participate in, and it's really important that patients do participate in the process, because historically what we know from our experience with other rare disease treatments, it's often the patient voice that can turn things around. So hopefully, following the TGA approval, the submission into the PBAC will happen later on in the year. There will be opportunity as part of that process for the public to put in comment, formal submissions into that process. So that's one of the first key areas in which you can become involved. And it's really important for you to write submissions, for you to get your friends and family and anyone that you can to write a submission to that. Because it will enable you to share your story, and that's what they're interested in hearing, about what that drug would mean to you. It would also give the policymakers, or the PBAC, give them a sense of how much this is affecting people day to day. So it's really important that you do that.
That human touch.
Yeah, most definitely. The other key way to get involved in the process can actually start now and is independent of the process of the submission. When we lobby for treatments to be reimbursed, you need people to fight for you, and the best people positioned to fight for you, as well as obviously the patient group, so SMAA and Julie, but it's really your local federal member. The funding for rare disease drug is a federal health matter, so you need to go on and find out who your federal health member is, and you need to make sure that they know who you are. And when the other thing to remember is that for the federal MP, they're actually obliged to meet with their constituents. So you need to email, you need to ring, you need to drop into their office, you need to accidentally bump into them when they're at an event in your community.
And that's exactly what I did. I actually saw my local minister, Jason Wood, at the local show, and I accosted him and I'm just like, oh, I know who you are and I need to speak with you. Can I make an appointment? And he's like, what was this about? So we had a conversation at the show, actually, about SMA and about the drug that I wanted passed, and got an appointment with him 2 weeks later. And when you do get an appointment with them, you need to be concise, you need to give them your information, and we've got some pro forma letters here that we're getting printed at the moment, and a storybook of some other families that have received the drug and some families that haven't received the drug, to help you with your material when you do go and see your local member. And I went in and I had all this material, and they've literally got a 15-minute window. So the window that I had with Jason in the first meeting was literally only 15 minutes long. And then when I went to Canberra, it was the same. They don't have time. You need to be concise. You need to tell them the message that you want to relay. And in the letter, there's a few key messages. And as you all know, we've been emailing out in the last couple of weeks about what you think your key message is to the Australian government about the whole disease of SMA. So if there's something that you think that you want to share with us that is important that the government needs to know, then please make sure you email us or ring us. We're more than happy to have a conversation. In fact, we'd love to have a conversation with you to help you get the tools that you need to go and see your local member. Sometimes it's difficult. You get flustered and it's like, oh, what am I going to say to this person?
It can be, but remember your first goal is really just to get in front of them, and you want to push for that meeting. And then if you come out of that meeting and you think, I should have said this, I should have said that, that's fine, email them. But don't get too daunted by the idea of getting a key message, because really initially what you want is you just want your MP to know who you are. Okay, so go in and don't get flustered about talking about the science of the drug. Don't get flustered about talking about any clinical benefits. Just go in, talk about yourself, talk about your family, talk about what sort of people you are, what you like to do. Let them know who you are, because what you're actually doing is you're starting a new relationship. So you want to be able to go and see them tomorrow. You want to be able to go and pop in and see them next week, next month. You want them to be able to be pleased when they see you. Be very polite. Show your gratitude for the time and the interest that they show in you, and just know whatever meeting you have, it's not going to be your first contact with them. Yeah. You're actually about developing the relationship. The other thing that's really important is to look for opportunities to recontact them. So anytime there is anything in the media about SMA, anything in the media about the drug, anything in the media about rare disease, and also tell them, keep them updated with news of your own family, of perhaps achievements achievements with their health and changes in their health. Just keep them updated.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's really important, that relationship, because in the end they're the ones who are going to be making a difference in the lives of the whole community. They're the ones that lead our state and our government, and to be able to provide a local sort of contact, a local situation is really important. And the more people that do that, the better off, you know, our voice will be heard. And I think it was done just recently with cystic fibrosis in January. They knocked it back through the PBS, and the community went in an uproar, and they actually had an out of sitting meeting. They weren't meant to sit, and they convened, and they actually passed the drug in January. So you know, that sort of situation, it can happen, and it did happen earlier this year with a drug for cystic fibrosis. So we need to be in this together. I've started the ball rolling up in Canberra on the 21st of March, and I'm pretty sure that I'll be heading there a number of times over the next 12 months to see and listen and hear. I know Jason Wood, my local member, has a speech in Parliament, or had a speech in Parliament this week. They're allowed to do a 3-minute speech to highlight disease and issues that faced in their local area. That's another way that the politician can help you and your family, and it's recorded on a entry called Hansard, and it's kept in their records that somebody has spoken about this disease and their concerns. And you know, that's the things that the government listen to. It's written down, it's filed, and they know that it's important. Then if they don't know and they don't listen and they can't hear our voice, then you know, we can't be heard. A lot of people have said to me, you know, to go and protest. Well, this is sort of a protest, I guess, in a way, but it's a calm protest to our local member who will be able to help you know, their families or their person that is living in their own electorate. And that's the I suppose the biggest message that we want to get across today. It starts with us, you know.
Yes, it does. And to influence politicians or to influence politics, it's important they hear the same message from different sources over and over. So obviously Julie will work from the patient organisation point of view, but also it's really important that you do it as an individual, on an individual basis, but also to follow SMAA's direction, and so that you've got the same key messages. And also be wary, and Julie, you touched on it, be wary of, don't go in angry. You have to be, as much as the process is often frustrating and much longer than we want it to be, we have to respect it. And if you go in angry, what's going to happen is that politicians are going to start hiding from you. So you want them to keep talking. You're going to have to do more than one conversation with your MPs. So I used to, I had a term that we call it polite persistence. So be persistent, but be polite, and you know, follow leverage of other people's success. So make sure you tell your local MP that Julie went and spoke to the Health Minister's advisor about this. Keep communicating amongst yourselves in the group, so that then you can share the progress that you made.
And if you do go to a local MP, please share your success with us. You know, we'd love to hear your stories when they start to come through, of who you went and saw, and you know, how the meeting went, and if there is any outcome from that meeting, and what that politician will be likely to do to support you who lives in their local electorate. As I said, I'm going back to see Jason in a couple of weeks to report back as to the findings that Alex was going to give him, and hopefully, you know, then I can report back to everyone else when we find, you know, that perhaps the drug has, you know, been fast-tracked through the TGA. I mean, that would be an absolute amazing, thing to happen, and one step closer to the PBAC, and then also one step closer then to have access for families here in Australia. And that's our ultimate goal. As we know, this drug is the only drug that is available worldwide for now.
Yes.
And it's really important that families get access to it as quick as possible.
Look, it is, and that's
through the right process, though.
Well, that's right, and I guess they're the key messages that it's important that that you push. Is that and RVA will often push. These are the key messages of RVA: is that everybody deserves access to the best possible treatment at any particular time. What will come up invariably is that people will challenge the cost of the drug. Rare disease treatments are generally very expensive. In our experience, it's not overly helpful for families or to get caught up into those conversations. So if when you meet your MP and they query or they challenge the cost of the drug, what we would recommend is that you say, without government funding, it is too expensive for anyone to access.
Yeah.
But it is comparable to other rare disease treatments that government are already funding currently.
Yeah.
And that's all you need to say. You don't need to get caught up into the validity around the cost. That's actually a commercial matter, and it's between government and the drug company. But often it can be used as a strategy to close down conversations. So if you just have some key messages around that, it stops that being closed down.
Fantastic. If you have any questions or want to know further information, we're more than happy to field phone calls and answer any questions. We want to make sure that you are well versed in anything to do with this. It's something that obviously I haven't been familiar with in the past and have no idea about politics. I have an idea about SMA and what it does and how to support you, but being able to talk to you today, Nicole, and you being able to talk to our families has enabled them to get a little bit of insight into what actually does happen, the process that we need to follow to ensure the correct delivery of the drug, I guess, or the correct commercialisation of it. So, we just encourage anyone, if they want any further information, to please contact us by email or by phone. We're more than happy to have a conversation with you all, and hopefully in the future we can have a couple more of these lovely sessions. Thanks for coming in today. It's been amazing. I hope everyone's gotten their information and they can start campaigning to their local federal member. We're talking federal members, not state members here.
Yes.
So just clarify, there's a difference.
Yes.
The state members look after the affairs of the state, and the federal members are those ones that go to Canberra and look after the whole of Australia. So just to make sure that we have that clear. In the next couple of weeks, we hope to have Glenn and the team from Alva Prime come back and talk to get us on Facebook again and be able to chat with some doctors about the process of increasing the extended access program, and also some other good things as well. We hope that you've had a great listen today, and please don't forget to participate in this exercise, because the only way that we're going to get it passed is if we get your participation. So, and a final note, as I mentioned at the start of this feed, we've got our galas coming up in August, and we'd love to see as many of you there as possible. It's an absolutely fantastic night. People have an amazing time. Brisbane is on the 26th of August and Melbourne is on the 5th of August. And yeah, If you, again, contact us, we can give you some more information, email or send you a flyer. We'd love to see as many of you in those venues as possible to celebrate. Hopefully by August we can celebrate some good news with everyone at those galas about the process of the drug being passed. So thanks everyone, and we'll see you next time. Bye.